The Standing Committee on Utilities will come to order. Madam Secretary, please call the roll.
Chairman Kidd.
Present.
Vice Chair Bromley.
Here. We have 5 present. We don't need a quorum to hold a hearing. Representative, tonight we're going to hear your bill 1852. Are you ready, sir? Proceed.
Mr. Chair, members of the committee, Jeff Knight of the 129th, Dallas and Laclede County, here to present House Bill 1852. I think everyone should have a sub. This bill is basically a result of a very controversial issue. And in this building, whenever you have a bunch of groups that cannot agree on anything, the only responsible thing that I could do is create a task force. And later on, we'll create a task force to overlook all the task force. But this task force will particularly go into a solar study, and we will clarify some provisions in the Merchandising Practicing Act. And lastly, there'll be some definition changes. There is a fiscal note that people are asking questions about, that a Division of Energy has the funds for that fiscal note. The Senate even somewhat agrees on this bill. And with that, people behind me will take any questions.
Any questions for this witness? Seeing none, we will go in alternate forms again. All those who are in favor of the bill, please step forward. Don't forget to fill out a witness form before you sit in that chair, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. My name is Rebecca Eichelberger, and I am testifying, of course, in support of the bill on behalf of the electric co-ops, the Association of Missouri Electric Cooperatives. Like the representative said, this bill, it reflects a compromise and a total change in direction of the controversial net metering language that has been brought in front of this committee in the past. It does 3 things. It clarifies that the relevant consumer protections in the Merchandising Practices Act apply to the sale of solar systems beyond just the 3-day contract cancellation period. It makes some minor non-controversial definition changes to make sure that definitions used not only throughout this bill, but in different sections of the law are consistent. And it creates a distributed generation and net metering task force, and that task force is going to be tasked with conducting an in-depth and comprehensive review of all of the issues and topics that have arisen since the original passage of the 2007 net metering law and the subsequent growth of the solar industry. Looking at the Consumer Protection and Merchandising Practices Act piece, that's on page 7 of the bill. It simply adds a couple sections to the sentence that currently refers only to the 3-day contract cancellation period of the bill. And these definitions are fundamental protections and procedures for the Merchandising Practices Act that are generally related to specific goods that don't have their own specific provisions. You've seen this in health spas and the lemon law, things like that. The number of complaints that we have seen for solar vendors in the past several years has increased substantially every year. You should have a handout that is a list of solar complaints from the Attorney General's office. We're hoping that with these changes in the Merchandising Practices Act that some of these solar vendors that are not acting ethically can be held responsible. And protect our members and solar customers. Definitional changes in the bill. Like I mentioned, these are cleanup definitions so that definitions in this bill and in other areas of the law are consistent. You'll see some of the definitions in there are like electrical corporation, referring to IOUs, retail electric suppliers, that refers to electric co-ops and municipally owned utilities, and qualified electric generation unit are some of the changes in there. One of the definitions that received a little bit of controversy in the Senate was not to exceed 100%. You'll see that on the original bill, not in this. It's in the sub, the changes, but on page 3 of the original bill, it's lines 18 and 19. It says not to exceed 100%. In the sub that was presented by the representative, that has been removed. And that was removed in the Senate at the request of the solar vendors, and we're fine with that change. The task force, this was an idea that was put forward last session by Renew Missouri, but time ran out to move anywhere with this task force. So as the committee knows, net metering is a very controversial and very complex issue. So any attempts that have been made by either side to change the net metering law since 2007 has failed. So we're hoping that this task force can be put together to study the issues that everybody's having and to come together and figure out a plan for that. We've created task forces in the past. This task force language has been modeled after previous task forces. Certain compromise changes that were made in the Senate version were made at the request of some of the solar groups as well as the PSC. That includes adding the Office of Public Counsel to the task force and also representatives that are appointed by the chairman of the PSC. We're fine with that change. The Senate also added community solar as a topic that the task force should study. We don't have a problem with any of the compromise language that the Senate has put forth in that. The Senate version of the bill is Senator Brown's bill, 763. That was passed out of committee unanimously, 11-0, although it is not on the Senate calendar yet. However, the Senate language has been passed on two bills out of the House that are now, or out of the Senate that are now in the House, Senate Bill 745 and Senate Bill 820. However, in Senate Bill 820, we will need to make a date change to be consistent with the substitute as well. And with that, I'm happy to take any questions.
Any questions for this witness? Representative Bromley, proceed.
To inquire, please.
Proceed.
So this bill is on distributed energy resources, and all I've heard you mention is solar. There's a lot of different distributed energy, such as battery, storage, small wind turbines that maybe individuals have and everything. Is this task force going to look at all of that as opposed to just the solar aspect of it?
The task force is on distributed energy, so I don't think that the task force would be limited to only solar. This task force just comes after, trying to change net metering language, which typically right now we're seeing the most problems with that in solar. But I don't think we'd have a problem with thinking through some other topics for the task force as well.
So solar makes up the majority of the distributed energy right now?
Right now, it's the most popular, yes.
Yeah, so I was just curious on that because, like I said, in the future with battery storage and different things, there's a lot of companies, a lot of different things going on.
Right.
And I just want to make sure this wasn't limited to just solar.
No, the task force is a task force on distributed energy.
Okay, thank you.
Any more questions for this witness? All right. Representative Black, proceed, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. You gave us this packet of complaints regarding the industry, correct?
Yes.
We had a similar packet last year with another bill regarding net metering. Do you know, have you done any analysis? Of course, this year is not over, but are the number of complaints increasing, decreasing? Have you done any analysis of that?
Yes, they are increasing pretty substantially. If you see anything before like 2010, there's just a couple complaints a year, and there are pages of complaints from 2021 and going forward.
These
So
are from people who bought some sort of solar product usually and have some sort of complaint with the AG. Is that correct?
Yeah, I would say the majority of them are people who have bought solar arrays and have issues with that, whether it's the solar vendor or some other issue.
Thank you.
Representative, I don't know if you saw that last week it was announced that the Attorney General has filed suit against a solar company for unscrupulous business. So, and they are not, and for clarity, they are not a member of MOSIA, and so they are not a member of the solar group. And so I believe part of that needs to be looked at about who and what and where and how it comes into the state, what licensing requirements and insurance requirements and other things that need to be looked at. So, yeah, it's getting bigger. Any other questions for this witness? See none. Anyone here who opposes the legislation? All right, now this is the first, I must admit. Co-ops, most solar people, investor owns, munis in the room together on the same bill. We're going to have a kumbaya moment. Okay, here he comes right here. He wants to. No one against the bill, so we'll listen to or in favor of this.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, Fred Dreiling today representing the Missouri Association of Municipal Utilities, and we would like to go on record in support of House Bill 1852. I think my colleague from the Missouri Electric Cooperatives did a very good job in describing it, and we too, like the cooperatives, are not-for-profit utilities, so this is something that we would like to have a discussion about, and we are glad that community solar gardens are also included in this study, and we look forward to working with the task force. Be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions for this witness? Seeing none, thank you, sir. Anyone else testify in favor of the legislation? Make sure you filled out a witness form. Have you done online?
I did fill out online.
Okay.
I registered online in opposition before I knew the substitute was coming, so I am testifying in favor, just to clarify.
Okay,
that
thank
point.
you.
My name is Grace Tedder. I'm here representing the Missouri Solar Energy Industry Association and EFS Energy, the solar company that I work at. And yeah, MOSIA is in support of this substitute language. We, just want to make sure that this task force is something that's balanced and that, provides not biased in favor of one entity or the other, which we feel that this compromise is kind of achieving that. The only other thing that we kind of, would advocate for on this task force is the utility, whether that's munis, co-ops, or the investor owns, are able to nominate members to the PSC selection for the committee, and we would ask that the Solar Industry Association would also be able to nominate their member to the PSC instead of it just being a selection, so that would be kind of on the same ground there. But otherwise, yeah, we are in support of the task force and, want to work together on this issue.
Thank you. Any questions for this witness? Seeing none, thank you. Anyone else testify in favor?
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. My name is James Owen. I'm the Executive Director of Renew Missouri. We are here to testify in support of the bill in its substitute form. In addition to working with the other stakeholders who are engaged with this process, that'd be the co-ops and some of the other utilities, we have worked with the Senate sponsor. We have worked on language that we believe will result in a good composition for this task force that I think will lead to a more objective result. We are excited about seeing that proceed. I think just to address the one issue that was brought up about complaints or issues from solar customers against solar companies, the one thing I would say that, yeah, in addition to the lawsuit that's been brought forward by the Attorney General's office, that MOSIA has been working with the utilities and has been trying to get some legislation introduced that would allow for registration of solar companies to make sure those are more distinctly regulated, to make sure that those issues don't come up. So I just want to make it clear that even though, yes, there are problems, there are issues with that, the industry is trying to address it, and we want to assure the members of the committee that is being done. So with that, I would yield to questions.
Any questions for this witness? Seeing none, thank you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Anyone else testify in favor? Okay, one last chance. Anyone testify against? Sorry. Anyone now for information purposes only? Representative, I do have one more question for you, so if you'd come forward one more time, please. You just thought you were getting out. We've been looking at the fiscal note. I'd like to get that addressed as far as the range of the fiscal note to make sure that we have funds to do this, especially the funding for the cost of solar study. And do you know of anybody here from?
There used to be a gentleman that served in this body that has assured us that the Division of Energy has the funds for the study.
Okay.
Said it should not be a problem.
Could you have that gentleman come by my office, please?
I will.
Thank you.
Thank
Because that
you.
will be a question that'll be asked on the floor when we come to looking at the fiscal note to this. Uh-oh, you're not done yet, Representative? Representative McCreary, proceed.
It's not my fault.
To inquire, please. So, yeah, exactly. I had to work that in. My understanding of the bill in relation to your question is that if the money doesn't come from the feds for the data collection, that won't happen because it's actually written in that that's how it's going to be paid for. Is that, or am I reading that wrong?
No, I believe that's correct.
And so I think there might be some protections for the Missouri taxpayer in that if we can't get that federal money that our colleague, former Representative Redmond had talked about, then there's not going to be a way to collect the data. That's my reading of it.
I believe that's correct. Mr. Pollock, do you have any other information, sir? You're sitting there. You need to, we are online, so you need to testify and speak into the microphone, please.
Do I have to fill one of these out too?
You will now.
Director Red, Zach Pollock, Missouri Electric Cooperatives. I spoke to the director yesterday, and he wishes he could be here, but he had a prior engagement in Kirksville this morning. But yes, he will come over and speak to you, Mr. Chairman, and any other member of the committee that would like to discuss that fiscal note.
Okay. Any questions for this witness? Seeing none. Representative, you may leave now. We're now concluding the hearing on House Bill 1852. We will now move to House Bill 2709. Representative Bromley, if you're ready, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. My name is Bob Bromley. I represent District 162 in Southwest Missouri. I'm here today to offer House Bill 2709. This bill is very similar to a bill that we heard on the floor, a portion of that bill, and that was Bill 1734. This is almost identical language to that, and that passed out of the House about 2 weeks ago. What this bill basically is, it's a tracker for property tax, both state and local, that utilities that are regulated by the PSC, once they file their rate increase or decrease rate case, they have a tariff set, and that's what their rates are until they file their next rate increase or decrease. And what this bill does is this allows those utilities to keep track of the changes in property taxes, both local and state property taxes, and just have a separate accounting system for that where they maintain either the pluses or minuses that impacts their rates. And then at the next, and they don't change their rates or that, they go through their next rate case. And at that time, during that rate case, the PSC will take a look at what those property taxes did during that period of time, whether they went up or down. And then they will consider that and evaluate that and allow that utility to go back and collect those property taxes or to refund that money on those property taxes, whichever one it may be. And with that, I'll be happy to take any questions. And we do have several people here, I think, that can speak to this if there's questions I cannot answer.
Any questions for this witness? Representative McCreary, proceed.
So The language that's in your bill is part of 1734, and then the Senate version of the bill that was fairly, and on the Senate side, they ended up changing it.
Yes, and what the chair and I have talked about, that we would try to change this language in a House committee sub, if this goes forward from here, to mimic that language and to change that language.
Okay, so
And we would remove that without any offset language, and so that's where we would be.
okay, so, but you're testifying and the witnesses today are going to be as how the bill is drafted right now?
Yes,
Okay, but you are willing to get the language to mirror?
yes.
Okay, very good. Can you talk a little bit about how you feel about things like property taxes being rolled into the overall rates and the impact it might have on, our constituents, the ratepayers?
I think it's like any other tax. If property taxes go up, the utilities are going to have to pay more money, and it's going to raise rates. If property taxes would go down, it could lower the rates. But this is just a way for the utilities to track that and keep track of that. And then the PSC would have the opportunity to evaluate that in the next rate case.
Okay. I think we just have a fundamental disagreement on if property taxes should go into that part of the rate. So maybe we can talk about that a little bit later.
Okay.
So very
That'd be
good.
fine.
Thank you.
Any more questions for this witness? All right, seeing none, thank you, sir.
Thank
Anyone
you.
to testify in favor of the legislation?
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, Ranking Member, and members of the committee. Jason Klent with the Senior Director of Government Affairs and Economic Development for Evergy and the nearly 5,000 employees. Thank the representative for bringing this bill forward. It's really simple. Just the legislative language there is a paragraph, and to answer kind of Representative McCreary's question, we're fine with the Senate passed language in 745, and I think it's 1734. Fine with either one of those. But most expenses are controlled by the company, but not all of them. A significant one being taxes. We don't control if it goes up or if it goes down, but we feel the effects of those decisions. So the reason we support this bill is for every extra dollar we pay in taxes, that's a dollar we're not investing in Missouri. It's a dollar not being invested in substations, in transmission, in cybersecurity. It might also drive us to come in for an earlier rate case. The bill does not ask you to immediately change rates like a rider would. The bill simply asks you to allow the PSC to track rates so that we can keep investing in Missouri. The tracked amount can then be considered during the next full rate case when all utility books are open to the PSC. This is something that would smooth out any overage that would go. Although I would also point out, taxes can go the other way. If you look at one of the things that's happening right now, you all passed a securitization bill last year. Our neighbors to the east are saying that they have a coal plant that is likely coming out of rate base sometime in the near future. We have coal plants that will at some point come out of rate base. So that's a big driver of taxes, that investment. So rates can actually go the other way as well, and they have in our rate cases. All this does, tracks it as it goes up, tracks it as it goes down. I don't think anybody would contend that we shouldn't pay property taxes or that we have a right not to pay property taxes. All this does is allow us to pay a tax that is put on us legally by the government, and that we continue to, so that we aren't penalized for taxes which we don't control. 14 other states, including Kansas, allow for some sort of mechanism to account for property taxes. So in summation, this isn't a cost we control. All we're asking for is to track this cost so that we can keep investing in the grid. And with that, Mr. Chairman, I will take your questions.
Any questions for this witness? It's an easy morning.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Anyone in opposition to the legislation? All right. Anyone in favor of the legislation?
Hello, members of the committee. Zach Monroe on behalf of Ameren, Missouri. We just want to go on record supporting this legislation and happy to take any questions.
Any questions for this witness? Representative Simmons, proceed.
To inquire thing.
Proceed.
Just a general question. So obviously you must be doing this already some other way, I guess, in terms of tracking. So is this just a different accounting method that you all are requesting, or?
So essentially what happens right now is when we go in for a rate case, I like to refer to as a snapshot is taken of the taxes we pay, and those are factored into rates at that time. Whatever fluctuates between then and the next rate case is if that goes up, that is not collected, and if it goes down, it's over collected, and then it's reset at the next rate case. And so what this would allow is a tracker, a ledger, to watch the up and down between rate cases and have that factored in at the next rate case. And then the new language that was approved in the Senate bill and mirrored in House Bill 1734 make sure to give the the commission prudence to make sure that we are still challenging excessive assessments and stuff like that, which has been going on with various properties I know in our region and is applicable to other utilities as well. So it makes sure that we are still not just letting that go if we feel we've been overassessed because of this tracker. Everybody has made sure to be kept responsible to that.
Representative McCrory, proceed.
Thank you. So what is your motivation to actually, if you're going to get paid for increased taxes, which is like I think the layperson's interpretation of this, you're going to get reimbursed for the taxes more quickly between rate cases. What's your motivation to challenge the property tax increases?
Well, I think the motivation is the prudency language in there, obviously, because if we come and the commission is aware of that assessments have skyrocketed on us or become excessive, I'm going to say, did you guys ever even go to the Board of Equalization that the tax commission has, et cetera, and if we didn't, if we're just saying, no, we expected to collect it, I think that would give them prudence to disallow that. And I think that was something that was discussed with the with representative of the commission in the Senate at the time.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I think I see the PSC liaison here. I want to see what that looks like in the Senate language just to make sure. I mean, I challenge my property taxes every time because I would love to know what part of the state taxes actually go down. That sounds very intriguing.
So something we envision where we would see a decrease in our property taxes is when we are expecting, we will be retiring the Merrimack coal plant at the end of this year. We've had that scheduled for many years. And when that happens, the property taxes that we pay will go down because starting in January of next year, because that will no longer be an asset on our books. This will inevitably happen based on a recent court ruling for the plant we have in Jefferson County. Whenever that plant does get retired, that date is not set. That will have the same effect there. So you would have that go down. And so theoretically, between rate cases in those situations, without this language, we could be over collecting for those taxes.
So that would be a way for the rates that our constituents pay to actually go down, their bills would go down?
It would be tracked as an overall ledger against many ledgers that the commission looks at a rate case.
Okay, thank you.
Any more questions for this witness? Seeing none, thank you, sir. Anyone else in favor of the legislation?
Morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, Spire, Missouri Natural Gas, Larry Ployce, Director of Government Relations. Just want to go on record in support of this bill. I think the previous testimony has covered most of the issues. We do have a bill in this chamber that we are dealing with different counties about consistency, tax consistency, and trying to be prudent to the previous testimony with tax rates that our customers do pay. And I would remind everybody that in Missouri there's no retroactive clause to rate making, so this just brings the rates forward. And in typical rate case settlements, it's a black box settlement. So things go in, things come out. In the end, you don't know exactly what all is attributed to what, but this does allow the ability to track those taxes that we would contest we do not control, other than for issues like we have in the chamber this year where we're trying to trying to get counties to do exactly the same thing across our footprint. Be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions for this witness? Seeing none, thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Anyone else in favor of the legislation?
Good morning, Mr. Chair. Jay Hahn on behalf of Missouri American Water. And for similar reasons that Spire made representations why they support the bill, we support the bill as well.
Any questions for this witness? All right, seeing none. Anyone else in favor of the legislation? One last time. Anyone opposed to the legislation? Seeing none. Anyone for information purposes only? Seeing none. Shortest utility meeting year to date. With that, we are closed.